Over the last couple of weeks since the Mist of Pandaria beta finally kicked off, there's the same questions that are popping up over and over again. So I've compiled the top 20 questions that I'm getting asked on a daily basis almost. And hopefully, if you've got a question similar to this or exactly the same as this, you'll be able to take an answer away. What you've got to remember is some of these answers will be speculation or educated guesses. And in those cases where they are just speculation or educated guesses, of course, I will let you know. Firstly, and the one that I'm getting asked the most on stream over on twitch.tv/Scottejaye87 or kick.com/Scottejaye, is when will Joyous Journeys come back, because I want to get ready for the pre-patch. Well, Joyous Journeys was first introduced back in Burning Crusade Classic as a way for people to start getting ready for Wrath of the Lich King. Since then, it kinda comes and goes. Normally it comes at times where the game's at a bit of a low, where all content's already clear and on farm, and we've been doing the same stuff for multiple weeks, so it's their way of giving you a little incentive to start leveling characters to get ready for the next phase of content or the next expansion. Now, at the time of recording, NA reset hasn't quite happened yet, and of course EU reset will be tomorrow, because I'm recording this on Tuesday morning. Now, I could see Joyous Journeys coming in as soon as this reset, if not, maybe next. In the lead up to Cataclysm, we actually had a really long, extended period of time where we had Joyous Journeys. In fact, we had Joyous Journeys up for the majority of the time we spent in Icecrown Citadel. So on the basis that next week the debuff in Dragon Soul goes up to 25%, you're kind of thinking that we are getting pretty close towards the end of the expansion and stepping into the Mr. Pandaria pre-patch. But another question that constantly gets asked, which I'm just going to throw in as an extra, is will we have it during the pre-patch? Now, they turned it off for the Cataclysm pre-patch so people could enjoy leveling Worgens and Goblins, or just faction change to them and give Blizzard money, at the normal rate of experience. Now, with Monks being available and the fact that they get a 50% XP buff that they can keep up nearly all the time anyway, I don't see Joyous Journeys being on in the pre-patch personally. They may keep it on, and as someone who's going to be leveling multiple monks, I hope they do. But I kind of think that they'll probably turn it off, which is why we'll get it soon and it will last all the way up until the pre-patch, in my opinion. And leading us on nicely to number 2 is when will the pre-patch be and when will launch be? Now, on the basis the beta has already been up for a couple of weeks, Cataclysm is on an accelerated cadence, or so they say, and we know by the end of this month it will have the 30% nerf in place. I don't see us being in Dragon Soul too long before the pre-patch actually hits. I'm going to stick with my original guess before the beta even went live, and again, this is one of those bits where it's speculation. I think we're looking at pre-patch in June, most likely towards the end of June, with then the actual game launching in July. Again, my reasoning for this is I just don't see us being in Dragon Soul with a 30% nerf all that long before the pre-patch comes, and they may even like to do an extended pre-patch this time, which they haven't done up until this point, but it does mean they can keep Dragon Soul as current content and keep it relevant for a little bit longer, because by the time we even get to the 30% nerf, that's going to be 4 months of doing Dragon Soul. It's only going to be 2 to 4 weeks, let's say, where we're doing it at 30% before it goes into the pre-patch, and then we're still going to have a couple of resets at least in the pre-patch where it's current content. That takes us nicely to 5 months of Dragon Soul. Number 3 is, will I be able to boost a monk in the pre-patch from my upgrade edition that I bought? Well, this is a bit of a tricky one for me to answer, because whilst my gut feeling tells me no, you won't, and no, we shouldn't be able to, the way it reads when you buy the deluxe edition where you then get the free character boost, it does say that it's only Pandarans that you cannot boost during the pre-patch. So if you was to do an orc monk or human monk or anything like that, then you should be able to boost them straight to 85. So if you buy the deluxe edition and you've got nothing that you really want to use the boost on immediately, I'd probably recommend keeping hold of it until the pre-patch, just to see if you can use it on a monk. Again, I will say though, gut feeling tells me no, you won't be able to, but if we go by the cold hard facts, it does not say monks are excluded. Number 4 is, will dungeon leveling through random dungeon finder be the best thing to do in MOP, or at least viable in MOP? Absolutely. If you've got a pre-made group of 5 and you're just going to spam RDF all the way to level 90, it is absolutely doable. Is it optimal? No, not really. The actual XP that you get in dungeons using random dungeon finder, you get around about 10% of a level a run. It will speed up a little bit when you're 87 plus, because the dungeons that you unlock are just better, but honestly, it's not going to be the quickest way to level, so we'll just leave that there. Number 5, why don't you have a tier list? What's the best class to play in MOP? I hate tier lists. Simple as that. So you just won't see me do one. I do, however, talk about all the classes in other videos and what their strengths and weaknesses are, so you can go check those out. But quite honestly, you play the class that you want to play. Will the guilds rushing for world first stack certain classes like Hunters, warlocks, arms warriors, shamans, yes, they absolutely will. Do you need to do that to clear the content? No, you absolutely don't. Every single class is viable and almost every single spec is viable as well. Once we've got more reliable sims, we'll have a much better idea on what that's going to look like, but why are you bothered? Because unless you're in one of those guilds that are rushing and trying to get world first, it just doesn't matter. Play the class that you're going to enjoy, not the class that you think is going to do the most damage, because ultimately you still need to be able to play that class really well to do the damage. You'll be better off on a class that apparently does slightly less, but you're more confident on. So make your choice and stick with it. If you check this video out here, I go through what, in my opinion, is the top 3 tanks, healers, melee and range DPS, all in one video, so that might help you out deciding. Number 6. What is the farm that people keep talking about in Mist of Pandaria? Well, when you go to Half Hill Market in Valley of the Four Winds, you can do a short quest line to unlock 4 plots, and then as you progress through the quest line, you can unlock more and more plots until you've got a fully functioning farm. It's kind of the heart of cooking. So when you get to Valley of the Four Winds and you go to Half Hill Market, you'll gradually unlock more plots that you can farm and grow things. Eventually, once you've got the reputation, you'll be able to grow Spirits of Harmony, which is pretty much what everyone's alt army is going to do. But there's far more important things than just getting Spirits of Harmony. All of the best cooking recipes all revolve around planting things or growing things and then harvesting things, or doing dailies around Half Hill Market to hand in iron poor tokens to be able to buy materials that you need for cooking. So while many of your alts will end up just planting and harvesting motes of harmony, it's always going to be worth checking the auction house because some of the cooking materials are going to be absolutely worth farming. Farming. Number 7 is to do with the farm as well. Can you start the farm at level 85 so you can take your freshly dinged 85 alts, maybe that you've boosted, straight to the farm and use them for farming? Yes, you can. I've been over and started it on an 85 rogue on the beta and it works absolutely fine. Number 8, will my heirloom head enchants work if I put them on now? So firstly, when Mr. Pandaria comes, all the head enchants from the reputation vendors through Cataclysm are made obsolete. If you've got any in your bag, they'll just vendor for 25 gold, but the good thing is, if you put them on now, so you create from your heirloom tab one of each head and then put a relevant enchant onto each of them and then put them on a bank ult or something like that, then you will actually keep the enchant. Of course, all enchants scale with level, so you can check out this spreadsheet that shows how they all scale with level. So basically, right now in Cataclysm, buy one of each head enchant and put them on one of each head type. Well, you probably need to do more than that to be fair, because you'll want like leather agility and leather caster, etc, etc. But just make sure all of the heads that you're going to use at any point during Mr. Pandaria and beyond have got enchants on. Number 9, is there anything I can farm now for my monks before the pre-patch? Well, this is quite a big one and probably needs a video on its own. But thinking about what professions they're going to be and starting to get kits ready now, doing archaeology and going over and doing Vrykul archaeology specifically to be able to get a couple of Niflvar bearded axes is going to be pretty good as well, because these are actually going to beat your heirlooms for quite a decent chunk of leveling. Now, you should only be able to solve it once on each character, so just go and do Vrykul archaeology on 2 characters over in Northrend until you get 2 of these axes, and you're going to be having a really good time from level 71 onwards. Of course, speak to a leather worker in the guild, or if you've got a leather worker yourself, to make the crafted 397 leather gear, as well as getting the BOE leather gear from the Valor Point vendor. In terms of actually leveling gear though, just grab some BOEs that go in those non-heirloom slots, and also, if you can, go and win the fishing tournament as well to get the heirloom ring, because that will just help you while you're leveling during the pre-patch if we're not all just boosting monks. Number 10 is, why do you say in videos that doing cooking now is not important? Well, there's kind of no point worrying about leveling cooking on your monks or on any characters during Cataclysm if you haven't done it already, because in Mr. Pandaria you can just stand at a vendor and do it for practically no gold. Of course, you have to spend a bit of gold on some materials, and there is actually one portion of it where you need some golden carp that comes from fishing, but you don't need many of them, and you catch golden carp absolutely everywhere in MOP. You'll just be able to go straight to the auction house and buy a couple of stacks. But it's so quick and easy to get up to Mr. Pandaria cooking levels that there's just kind of no point worrying about it now. Again, this takes place just outside your farm at Half Hill Market. Number 11 is, how many justice points should I prepare before the pre-patch hits? Well, this ultimately comes down to what you're going to need. I put together a sheet here that I'll put a link in the description for, but this covers how many justice points you would need to get each heirloom upgraded from level 80 to 85. Now, because most people that are going to be leveling during the pre-patch are probably going to be monks, you can see here it shows you how much you're going to need if you wanted all the leather heirlooms and, let's say, the agility maces. So really, for the pre-patch, how much you should prepare really comes down to you, but there is a risky thing you can do. And I'm saying it's risky because if you waste time doing it and it gets fixed or it gets nerfed or taken out, then don't come back and blame me. But something that I've been doing is stocking up on the Justice Point commendations. So when you're doing Twilight dungeons and you can get obsidian fragments, you can trade those obsidian fragments down to Fissure Stones. You can then trade in 10 Fissure Stones for 250 Justice Points. Now the thing about these is it doesn't just put the 250 Justice Points in your currency panel, it puts an item in your bag. So stocking up on as many of these for MOP launch, not the pre-patch, for actual Mist of Pandaria launch, getting as many as possible, if they don't get changed, could be pretty sick, because you'd be able to then convert these into honor and buy every piece of honor gear that you could possibly want, or even keeping them as justice and getting the justice point gear. The reason I say the honor gear is because if you get justice point gear in Mr. Pandaria, it's just 458 eye level. That's it. If you get the PvP gear, yes, it's only 458 as well, but you can use it for both PvP and PvE. It gets no less stat budget or anything like that because it's PvP gear, but you do get the PvP stats on it as well. So if you was to do any battlegrounds or something like that, not only are you going to be able to have a full set of PvP gear, you'll also use it for your first heroic dungeons as well. So that's personally what I'm going to be doing and what I'm trying, and I am stocking up on these now, but I know I could be very disappointed and it gets nerfed. Number 12 is, should I wait until the pre-patch to prepare all my scribe ults? Now, if for some reason you don't know because you haven't seen me talk about any of this before, having Inscription on as many ults as possible is going to be huge. You're going to be able to make a daily cooldown called a Scroll of Wisdom, then you're going to be able to turn that Scroll of Wisdom into a Dark Moon card. Some of these Dark Moon cards and the decks are going to be ridiculously expensive, so not only is it a great gold maker, but also, obviously, you're probably going to want one of the decks yourself, depending on what class you are. Now, the reason you don't want to wait until the pre-patch to start doing this is because the ink vendor will change. So I've spoken multiple videos about getting one Inscription or one Scribe maxed, and then basically milling max level herbs and trading the inks down to the ones that you need for your ults. If that's how you're leveling Inscription on your ults, you won't be able to do that in the pre-patch because the ink vendor will change to the Mr. Pandaria inks. So whatever you do, make sure you're not sat on loads of Blackfallow ink when you go into the pre-patch, or you're going to kind of regret it because you're going to have nothing to do with it. Number 13, just a real quick one for those of you that are excited about pet battles like I am, are the raid pets dropping. So in Mr. Pandaria, there's a couple of achievements called raiding with leashes. These achievements require you to collect the pets that come from the raids. Now, these were old raids and they were added in around halfway through Mr. Pandaria, as in the pets were added in to the raid bosses. So you can get pets from places like Blackwing Lair, Molten Core, Anchorage, Karazhan, SSC, TK. Basically all the raids up until Black Temple. You don't get anything from Black Temple. Anything above tier 5 doesn't drop pets that don't come in until Warlords of Draenor. But on the beta, I went over to Karazhan, didn't get any pets drop, was very disappointed, just assumed, yeah, it's not been added into the game yet. But I didn't give up there. I went to Tempest Keep as well. No pets dropped, so I was kind of starting to think that they're just not in. But then I did go to Molten Core, got really lucky, and I did see a pet drop. So I can confirm they are dropping on the beta, which to me would probably say they're likely to be dropping in the pre-patch. So if you're thinking about things that you can do during the pre-patch, judging by this, you can probably go around and farm the old raids each week to try and get the pets if you're excited for pet battles like I am. Number 14 is going to be a real quick one because I've seen people soloing Grim Batol. Is that going to be the way to level in Mist of Pandaria? I will say, yes, it will be. There will be no quicker way to level than doing Grim Batol solo. Every class can solo it because it's so easy and it gives ludicrous amounts of XP. It is ridiculously fast. Will you be doing it? I highly doubt it. I see it getting nerfed. Moving on. Number 15, is AoE looting in the game? Yes, and I keep getting asked this, and I'm not sure why. Of course AoE looting's in the game. AoE looting was added in Mr. Pandaria originally, and yeah, it's there. I really don't know why people keep asking. Question 16 is, do I need to farm reps? Now, if you want me to say no to keep you happy, I can say no, because technically, no, you don't. You don't need to farm reps. If you're not that bothered about getting a couple of minor upgrades in terms of pre-raid bis, you don't need to worry about Klaxi or Golden Lotus, because both of these do give pre-raid bis items that ultimately you can replace in the raid anyway, so If you can't be bothered to do the reps, you don't have to do them. You've got reps like Anglers that gives fishing related stuff that you absolutely don't need to do. You've got lots of reputations that give rewards for professions, which if you're not bothered about being able to do all the enchants or being able to craft everything that you can craft, you don't need to do those. So quite honestly, no, they're not mandatory. But if you want to get pre-raid bis, then 2 of them are. As I say, Klaxian Golden Lotus, in my opinion, outside of crafting, are the only 2 reputations that you need to worry about. So if you've heard it called World of Daily Craft or World of Reputation Craft when it comes to Mr. Pandaria, ignore it. It's rubbish. Number 17 is what professions are bis for raiding. Now, this is a difficult one to answer because I do honestly think lots of professions and profession bonuses that are bis in Phase 1 won't be bis in Phase 3, which will be Throne of Thunder, or Phase 4, which will be Siege of Orgrimmar. Well, actually, that'll be Phase 5. I think they will shift a bit as the stats that you want change. For example, as a warrior, arms specifically early on, you're probably not going to be stacking crit. You'll still be just wanting as much strength as possible. But when you get to the point where you will be stacking crit, then things like blacksmithing to get 2 extra crit sockets are going to be nice. Things like even skinning for the crit. Faction change into Worgen for the crit. It really depends on what your stat weights are at any given time. There is no default 2 profession choice that is bis for every class and spec. Is engineering super strong for basically everyone still? Absolutely, because synapse springs get upgraded. They're really useful, but they lose a little bit of use if one of your bis trinkets is an on-use trinket, for example, because you still can't use the glove tinker and a trinket together at the same time. Is the tailoring proc still super strong? Absolutely, especially if you're snapshotting it with stuff. Can you just go alchemy enchanting? Of course you can. Literally, the difference is minimal between all of the professions, but it really comes down to what stats you need. So quite honestly, go what you want. Me personally, as a Windwalker monk, I will be going engineering tailoring, and that's purely because my cooldown being Tiger's Eye Brew can be used whenever I want. So I can use it every time I've got my cloak proc. I can use it every time I've got synapse springs ready to stack with a trinket. As a Windwalker monk, you've got so much control over your DPS cooldown that it kind of don't matter how random it is with all the procs that you're getting. But ultimately, again, the gain between professions is so small, just pick 2 that are not gathering and roll with it. Question 18 would be, is Raid Finder coming with Mr. Pandaria? Well, as you know, Raid Finder should have actually come with Dragon Soul, and it didn't. Now, Raid Finder is a big part of Mr. Pandaria, especially for alts being able to work their way through the legendary quest line without actually having to go to organized raids. It is currently showing on the Mr. Pandaria beta, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be in the final build. So don't get too excited. Don't assume it's going to be there. Don't assume it's not going to be there. But the one thing I will say is I personally think it has to be there. The legendary quest line is bad enough as it is if you have a week off or 2 weeks off to go on holiday. At least if you come back towards the end of a reset and your guild's already raided, you can just jump in LFR and still progress on with your legendary quest line. So is it going to be in? Don't know. Should it be in? Absolutely yes. 19 is just around challenge modes, and are they hard? Because people are saying they're like Mythic Plus. No, they're nothing like Mythic Plus. They're kind of the first iteration of Mythic Plus, you could put it like that. But comparing Mythic Plus in retail to challenge modes in Mr. Pandaria is night and day. Firstly, are they hard? They're not as easy as Heroic, but they're not as hard as M Plus in retail. So any group of 5 people should be able to get through these. What's the meta comp to do challenge modes? Well, the fact is, if you want to push Realm first times, like, you won't be running a healer. It'll be like a Brewmaster and 4 really big pump in DPS. But for your average person that just wants to beat the gold timer to get the transmog gear and the mount and the title and all of that, then it just doesn't matter. Take a tank, take a healer, preferably have a mix of DPS obviously, but you really won't struggle. It might take a few runs through to actually work out what you want to kill, what you don't want to kill, but let's face it, there'll be guides on YouTube talking you through exactly what packs to kill, and I'll probably be putting them out myself. So no, don't panic about challenge modes, you will be able to do them comfortably. And then finally, quite a boring one to end on, but again, it's something that people keep coming into the stream and asking. But does the disenchant button get added with Mist of Pandaria? I think people forget. We've got so used to not having the disenchant button that it actually was meant to be implemented in Wrath of the Lich King. Why they still haven't put it into this day is absolutely beyond me, and it is something that I would love to see added in MOP. I know as enchanters you might not want it there, but the convenience it adds is just so good, and if you're like me and you do a lot of farming and you've got 2 accounts, being able to put an enchanter in the group offline and then just run around killing stuff and hit the disenchant button when things drop, it's just so convenient. So currently, no, it's not on the Mr. Pandaria beta, I will say that, but it is one of those things that I personally would love to see added. And I don't think I've really missed anything there. I would say they're the top 20 questions that I get asked day in, day out. So hopefully you took something away from this video. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, consider joining the channel as a member, check out Rested XP, check out the merch shop, all of that stuff that I've got to plug at the end, or I wouldn't be a real YouTuber, would I? And I'll see you on the next one. I'm not a real YouTuber.